going to start with the big winners this week. Check out some of these names. We talked about Apple and Tesla all week, but Pfizer was up 6%. Kraft Heinz up 7%. Molson Coors up 8%. And, of course, a big week for tech giant Apple, hitting a $1 trillion market cap. That was up 9%. We thought it would be a perfect time to play.
Great time.
Trade it or fade it. You know how this works,
well,
right?
This is
I'm going to give you a name.
I think we understand this.
Yeah, well, I have to explain to the viewers. You tell us if you're buying it, a.k.a. trading it, or selling it, a.k.a. fading it. Kicking it off with Pfizer up 6% this week. BK, you're fading it or trading it?
Well, you know, we played this game a lot, and it's always confusing. But in this case, I actually think fade it is the right thing to say here. Because fade it doesn't always mean necessarily short it. But look, you had this big run up. You've got insider selling here. Take some off the table and fade it.
I tell you, look at that chart, though. For a chart that's done almost nothing for the last 3 years, it actually looks like you're starting to, the technical guy in me tells me this chart looks like it's breaking out.
It very well could be, right? But I'm saying you've had this massive run up here. Why wouldn't you take a little bit off the table? If you're a technical guy, come back, buy it on at support.
Anything else in the pharmaceutical sector? Do you buy healthcare in general?
I think healthcare has been defensive. So if the market is going to turn around, if you're looking for yield, if yields don't rise as fast as we think they're going to, I think you could be in the space. I've owned Pfizer forever. I'm going to continue to hold it, so I'm going to continue to trade it.
How do you own it when the president is always complaining that you raise the price of your product? Like, you've got this constraint
Didn't bother it
on
already.
there.
Did bother it. It's close to.
But do you think it would be higher otherwise?
You can't prove the counterfactual.
No, I know it's
right?
hard. I know it's hard.
Well, I tell you what, if I think about the pressure that's on this sector from the administration, I mean, isn't this the story we've heard for every administration on both sides of the aisle? So I think biotech is really the place you want to be. I actually think these names are breaking out. And everyone that reported, including Amgen and Gilead, which are names that I think have struggled because the balance sheet is very good and there's not much in the top line, started to show some improvement in the pipeline. I like Amgen. I like Gilead.
I just wonder one last thing. I just wonder if the FANG stocks do continue to come on, if the money comes back out of here, because it seemed like a rotation. Yeah. So that would be my only caveat.
If
to
there
being
is a
along
rotation,
the
but actually like Tim's play on the biotechs too, I'd go smaller cap biotechs, XBI, which is the smaller cap biotechs, because who's Pfizer going to buy to fill their pipeline? Some of these kind of newer drugs out there. So if you take some profits in Pfizer, then trade the biotechs.
Dan, what do you think?
Historically, the large biotechs have actually traded very well when they made good smaller acquisitions. Last night we had Christopher Rohn on. He was doing some charting there. Amgen was one of the names. Yep. I know you like it fundamentally. It really does look like it's been basing for years, and it looks like it's about ready to break out. And when you see the breakout that we saw like last week in Eli Lilly, it went up in a straight line like 10% after a massive bait. I think some of these big cap, cheap biotechs have that potential from here.
Kraft Heinz was up 7%. Stevie Grasso, what are you doing with this?
This is an M&A story. So it's down 17% year to date, but it's popped recently 19% off the bottoms. It's a Campbell's soup, Kraft Heinz story. I don't know if it's going to happen, but that keeps investors on their heels. I think you could still trade it.
I tell you what, a lot of these food stocks, which have been a function of consolidation, and basically it's been a story for years. When the market was very, very cheap, or when we had no earnings, and when rates were at almost zero, these guys were actually trading at multiples that I don't think they deserved. A lot of them are still somewhat near those multiples. I just don't really like the sector. They're not growing the top line. Having to rely on Kraft to remake itself from a corporate structure perspective doesn't get me excited.
Trading time 17. Next year's earnings.
Yeah, but and I think that's a really good point.
Not cheap relative
not crazy.
to
But we were
market,
looking at these stocks. Your point was when rates were zero, they had some yield. They're defensive, that sort of thing. We're looking at them at like 22 times. Like, why are they trading here? So now we're looking at EPS growth of like mid-single digits, sales growth of low single digits, trading at a market multiple 17, 18 times. Makes little sense.
And a yield of 4%, though?
Right, and so we have the 10-year at 3. You know what I'm saying? So
it still is going to be M&A.
So you fade it.
Yeah, but I think the only bull case right now is really M&A.
Right.
Yeah.
Tim Seymour, Molson Coors was up 8%, kind of within the same kind of food sector.
It is. Look, the beer stocks 2 years ago, again, were a really hot trade. There's been a lot of consolidation in the sector over the years. Obviously, Bud has been consolidated by the Brazilians. Molson Coors, first of all, a guy like me has a tough time getting a Simple Man's Coors Light in New York City these days. It's a great beer. I like the company. I actually think it was oversold. The key to this earnings release is the fact that the expectation was very low. They reaffirmed 2018 guidance. The free cash flow here is very good. One of the problems with a lot of these companies is the balance sheet. So 4 times EBITDA in terms of debt to EBITDA 4 times. I want to see these guys pay some of that down. This number told investors they're going to be paying it down. I stay long the name.
Stock
I think
is
in
down
this
for the
space,
yield.
though, you look at something like Constellation Brands, right? Because they have a very wide portfolio. And look at how the stock traded today very well. I think I'd rather just kind of spread my bets in this space.
Steve Grasso, what do you think?
Well, TAP is off 20% off the lows right here. But for me, technically, it's running into a little bit of resistance. I'd give it a little more time to breathe, let it air out, and see if it breaks through that resistance level that we're currently at before I would trade it. So I would be a fader.
Speaking of breathing and airing out, Molson had some big news in terms of an alliance they made in the cannabis sector this week. In fact, they're going to actually be making cannabis-infused beverages. The beer sector is very concerned about what's going on in the recreational.
Didn't Sam Adams, weren't they the first one to do that? I believe that.
Sam Adams is as an alliance, Constellation as an alliance,
right.
and Molson is deciding that they're getting into the game, and I think this is actually good news for the sector.
That's why it's up 7% this week.
I think that may have something to do with it.
Anything in this?
Well, again, it's the Constellation Brands. I do anything that is touching cannabis, though, that is the threat to all these alcoholic beverage, adult beverage companies. So if they can get into that, that's the growth area, and you want to look for that.
If you can't beat them, buy them.
That's right.
Apple. Okay, we got to get to
Whoa.
Whoa, what? Apple.
Big week.
All right,
Big
so
week,
this
Dan.
is a little more complicated, right? So the stock has been up
why
3
we
days
gave
in
it
a
to
row since it. Oh, well, I'm just saying, let's go to the big guns here. But the stock's up 10% in a straight line. It got to that big round number of $1 trillion. I just want to make a point. This stock had a very volatile Q1. Okay, traded in a range though, and then after it reported those earnings on May 1st, the stock went up 10% in a straight line over 3 days. What did it do for the next few months? It consolidated those gains, and then we just had another breakout. So to me, I don't think it's like a sell or anything like that. I think there's a really good chance that you see the stock consolidate a little bit the first week of September. They're going to announce some new iPhones. Then the first one's going to be released at the end of September.
I think someone was saying, get to it, Dan. This is traded or faded.
But I think it's a
Big
point. I
gun,
think there's
Mr.
a
Big
very
Gun.
good chance you see the stock consolidate. There's going to be a lot of news coming out in the next couple months. I don't think you have to buy it right here.
Took Dan a long time to
I'm
fire
with
that
big
gun.
guns over
Fade
here.
it.
I think you fade it. Yeah. And to me, it's the exact same trade as Pfizer, right? Maybe there's some good news in there, but you've had this spike straight up. If I just look at it and take the name Apple off it because people get super emotional about it, I fade it.
I'm not emotional about this at all, and I think you guys are firing cap guns. Bottom line is, what happened Wednesday night after the bell was this company told you that their service revenue is actually really growing, and it's not reliant just on iPhones, and that the company is going to continue to give you back $25 billion in the form of buybacks or at least a dividend improvement. That, to me, is very impressive. I don't think everybody's in this story, or I don't think people are waiting. I would trade it. That's how you play the game.
Stevie Grasso.
I think
you've been here the longest out of everybody here. And there's one indicator that I think I know well, and that's the media hype indicator. Like when the media is going crazy over something, I get very nervous about that stuff.
No, I agree.
It's usually
I think it's the $1 trillion
So you freak
market
yourself
cap.
out, MCC.
Yeah, I know.
Got
I mean,
it.
The $1 trillion market cap is definitely a little frightful, but the value growth, Apple has been consolidating for the last couple of months. So this breakout, I think, has more legs to it, has a little more momentum to it. I do believe that I would trade it.
Yes, nice.
I would trade
Nice
it.
job.
does anybody believe when you hear Jim Cramer talk about this should get the multiple of a Clorox, which would put the thing at $300 instead of $200 because he sees it as
a consumer products company. Yeah, I get it.
Kramer said something the other night or the other day on Scott's show on the halftime, which I've never heard him say because he's been the guy you just own it and you never trade
Right.
it. Okay, so he could actually play this game with us if he wants to call in right now.
He'd probably do better than you.
But he kind of intimated that if you have massive games, you may want to fade some of them. I think I'm quoting him.
But I don't
correctly.
get that, and this has nothing to do with Jim's view on the stock. If you actually think a stock you've been bullish on a stock and you actually still want to own it, then you're basically getting long. We say this all the time. That night, by going home long the position, you might as well be buying that stock implicitly.
That day, yeah.
Has something just suddenly changed? If anything, I think the story's gotten better. I'm not fading.